The Odyssey by Homer, translated by Robert Fitzgerald. This is a continuation of an excerpt of Book 9. Here are the means I thought I would serve my turn. A club or staff lay there along the fold, an olive tree, felled green and left to season for Cyclops' hand, and it was bent like a mast a lugger of 20 oars, broad in the beam, a deep sea-going craft might carry. So long, so big around, it seemed. Now I chopped a 6-foot section of this pole and set it down before my men, who scraped it. And when they had it smoothed, I hewed it again, and made to make a stake with a pointed end. I held this in the fire's heart and turned it, toughening it, then hid it, well back in the cavern under one of the dung piles in profusion there. Now came the time to toss for it. Who ventured along with me? Whose hand could bear to thrust and grind that spike in Cyclops' eye, when mild sheep had mastered him? As luck would have it, the men I would have chosen won the toss, 4 strong men, and I made 5 as captain. At the evening came the shepherd with his flock, his woolly flock. The rams as well this time entered the cave, and by some sheep-herding whim or God's building, none were left outside. He hefted his great boulder into place and sat him down to milk with the bleating ewes in proper order, put the lambs to suck, and swiftly ran through all his evening chores. Then he caught 2 more men and feasted on them. My moment was at hand, and I went forward, holding an ivy bowl of my dark drink, looking up, saying, "Cyclops, try some wine. Here's liquor to wash down your scraps of men. Taste it and see the kind of drink we carried under our planks. I meant it for an offering if you would help us home. But you are mad, unbearable, a bloody monster. After this will any other traveler come to see you?" He seized and drained the bowl, and it went down so fiery and smooth he called for more. "Give me another, thank you kindly. Tell me, how are you called? I'll make a gift will please you. Even Cyclops know the wine grapes grow out of grassland and loam in heaven's rain. But here's a bit of nectar and ambrosia." 3 bowls I brought him, and he poured them down. I saw the fuddle and flush come over him. Then I sang out in cordial tones, "Cyclops, you ask my honorable name. Remember the gift you promised me, and I shall tell you. My name is Nobody. Mother, father, and friends, everybody calls me Nobody." And he said, "Nobody's my meat, then, after I eat his friends. Others come first. Here's a noble gift now." Even as he spoke, he reeled and tumbled backward, his great head lolling to one side, and sleep took on him like any creature. Drunk, hiccuping, he dribbled streams of liquor and bits of men. Now, by the gods, I drove my big hand spike deep in the embers, charring it again, and cheered my men along with battle talk to keep their courage up. No quitting now. The pike of olive green though it had been, reddened and glowed as if about to catch. I drew it from the coals, and my 4 fellows gave me a hand, lugging it near the Cyclops as more than natural force nerved them. Straight forward they sprinted, lifted it, and rammed it deep into his crater eye, and I leaned on it, turning as a shipwright turns a drill in planking, having men below to swing the 2-handled strap that spins it in the groove. So with our brand we bored that great eye socket while blood ran out and round the red-hot bar. Eyelid and lash were seared, the pierced ball hissed broiling, and the roots popped. In a smithy one sees a white-hot axe-head or an adze plunged and wrung in a cold tub, screeching steam, the way they make soft iron hail and hard. Just so that eyeball hissed around the spike. The Cyclops bellowed, and the rock roared around him, and we fell back in fear. Clawing his face, he tugged the bloody spike out of his eye, threw it away, and his wild hands went groping. Then he set up a howl for Cyclops, who lived in caves on windy peaks nearby. Some heard him, and they came in divers ways to clump around the outside and call, "What ails you, Polyphemus? Why do you cry so sore in the starry night? You will not let us sleep. Sure no man's driving off your flock? No man has tricked you, ruined you?" Out of the cave the mammoth Polyphemus roared in answer, "Nobody's tricked me. Nobody's tricked me. Nobody's ruined me." To this rough shout they made a sage reply, "Ah, well, if nobody has played you foul, there in your lonely bed, we are no use in pain given by great Zeus. Let it be your father, Poseidon Lord, to whom you pray." So saying, they trailed away, and I was filled with laughter to see how like a charm the name deceived them. Now Cyclops, wheezing as the pain came upon him, fumbled to wrench away the great doorstone, and squatted in the breach with arms thrown wide for any silly beast or man who bolted, hoping somehow I might be such a fool. But I kept thinking how to win the game. Death sat there huge. How could we slip away? I drew on all my wits and ran through tactics, reasoning as a man will for dear life, until the trick came, and it pleased me well. The Cyclops rams were handsome, fat with heavy fleeces, a dark violet. 3 abreast, I tied them silently together, twining cords of willow from the ogre's bed. Then slung a man under each middle one to ride there safely, shielded left and right, so 3 sheep could convey each man. I took the woolliest ram, the choicest of the flock, and flung myself under his kinky belly, pulled up tight with fingers twisted deep in sheepskin ringlets for an iron grip. So breathing hard we waited until morning. When dawn spread out her fingertips of rose, the rams began to stir, moving for pasture, and peals of bleating echoed around the pens where dams with udders full called for a milking. Blinded and sick with pain from his head wound, the master stroked each ram, then let it pass, but my men riding on the pectoral fleece the giant's blind hands blundering never found. Last of them all, my ram, the leader, came, weighted by wool and me with my meditations. The Cyclops patted him, and then he said, "Sweet cousin Ram, why lag behind the rest in the night cave? You never linger so, but graze before them all, and go afar to crop sweet grass, and take your stately way, leading along the streams until at evening you run to be the first one in the fold. Why now so far behind? Can you be grieving over your master's eye? That carrion rogue and his accursed companions burnt it out when he had conquered all my wits with wine. Nobody will not get out alive, I swear. Oh, had you a brain and voice to tell me where he may be now, dodging all my fury. Bashed by this hand and bashed on this rock wall, his brains would strew the floor, and I should have rest from outrage nobody worked upon me." He set us into the open then. Close by I dropped and rolled clear of the ram's belly, going this way and that to untie the men. With many glances back we rounded up his fat stiff-legged sheep to take aboard, and drove them down where the good ship lay. We saw as we came near our fellows' faces shining. Then we saw them turn to grief, tallying those who had not fled from death. I hushed them, jerking ahead with eyebrows up, and in a low voice told them, "Load this herd, move fast, and put the ship's head toward the breakers." They all pitched in at loading, then embarked and struck their oars into the sea. Far out, as a far-off shore has shouted words would carry, I sent a few back to the adversary. "O Cyclops! Would you feast on my companions? Puny am I in a caveman's hands? How do you like the beating that we gave you, you damned cannibal? Eater of guests under your roof, Zeus and the gods have paid you." The blind thing in his doubled fury broke at the hilltop in his hands and heaved it after us. Ahead of our black prow it struck and sank whelmed in a spuming geyser, a giant wave that washed the ship's stern foremost back to shore. I got the longest boat hook out and stood fending us off with furious nods to all to put their backs into a racing stroke. Row, row, or perish. So the long oars bent, kicking the foam sternward, making head until we drew away and twice as far. Now when I cupped my hands I heard the crew in low voices protesting, "God's sakes, Captain, why bait the beast again? Let him alone." That tidal wave he made on the first throw all but beached us, all but stove us in. Give him our bearing with your trumpeting, he'll get the range and lob a boulder. Aye, he'll smash our timbers and our heads together. I would not heed them in my glorying spirit, but let my anger flare and yelled, "Cyclops! If ever mortal man inquire how you were put to shame and blinded, tell them Odysseus, raider of cities, took your eye, Laertes' son, whose home on Ithaca." Now comes the weird upon me, spoken of old. A wizard, grand and wondrous, lived there, Telemus, a son of Eurymus. Great length of days he had in wizardry among the Cyclops, and these things he foretold for time to come. My great eye lost in at Odysseus' hand. Always I had in mind some giant armed in giant force would come against me here, but you, small, pitiful, and twiggy, you have put me down with wine, you blinded me. Come back, Odysseus, and I'll treat you well, praying the god of earthquake to befriend you. His son I am, for he by his avowal fathered me, and if he will, he may heal me of this black wound, he and no other of all the happy gods or mortal men." Few words I shouted in reply to him. "If I could take your life I would, and take your time away, and hurl you down to hell. The god of earthquake could not heal you there." At this he stretched his hands out in his darkness toward the sky of stars, and prayed Poseidon, "O hear me, Lord, blue girder of the islands. If I am thine indeed, and thou art father, grant that Odysseus, raider of cities, never see his home. Laertes' son, who kept his hall on Ithaca, should destiny intend that he shall see his roof again among his family in his fatherland, far be that day, and dark be the years between. Let him lose all companions, and return under strange sail to bitter days at home." In these words he prayed, and the god heard him. Now he laid hands upon a bigger stone, and wheeled round Titanic for the cast, to let it fly in the black-prowed vessel's track. But it fell short, just aft the steering oar, and whelming seas rose above the stone to bear us outward toward the island. There, as we saw the squadron waiting, the trim ships drawn up by side, and all our troubled friends who waited looking seaward, we beached her, grinding keel in the soft sand, and waded in ourselves on the sandy beach. Then we unloaded all the Cyclops flock to make division, share and share alike. Only my fighters voted on that my ram, the prize of all, should go to me. I slew him by the seaside, and burnt his long thigh bones to Zeus beyond the storm cloud, Cronus' son, who rules the world. But Zeus disdained my offering. Destruction for my ships he had in store, and death for those who sailed them, my companions. Now all day long until the sun went down we made our feast on mutton and sweet wine, till after sunset and the gathering dark we went to sleep above the wash of ripples. When young dawn with fingertips of rose touched the world, I roused the men, gave orders to man the ships, cast off the mooring lines, and filing in to sit beside the rowlocks, oarsmen in line dipped oars into the grey sea. So we moved out, sad in the vast offering, having our precious lives, but not our friends.